Pretty much ever since I started this podcast, I've been telling you about a service called Anchor. And if you hadn't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. And who doesn't have a podcast these days? Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you truly need to make a podcast in one place. Here's what you need to do. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey, podcast family, welcome to another week of the podcast. Not even the coronavirus will keep us down. In all seriousness, we're at episode number 27 this week, and I actually postponed the episode I was planning to put out and decided to go a different route just because of all the recent news disruptions and really the chaos that the COVID-19 or the coronavirus had caused all over China, then more recently in Italy, and now within our own United States and even more locally within Middle Tennessee. Yes, this is causing many inconveniences and disruptions throughout other states, with some going on complete lockdown like California, New York, Illinois, and maybe more by the time you're listening to this podcast. As of the time of me recording this intro, which is Saturday, March 21st, Tennessee is up to 371 cases of COVID-19, with most of these cases right here in Middle Tennessee. The news and updates on what the government is doing is changing hourly, so I apologize if I'm not giving you the most up-to-date information. So about a week ago, all bars and restaurants within Lower Broadway and Davison County were ordered to be shut down completely. It was only a matter of time before that reached broader throughout the state, with county mayors calling for shutdowns of their bars, restaurants, gyms, and other social gathering establishments. This COVID-19 outbreak is hurting local musicians and the venues themselves, as venues are temporarily closing as well. Many of our musicians and entertainers who keep Nashville's biggest tourism draw running are now without a job, an income stream, benefits, and more. More than ever, we need to come together as a community and help others where we can, and those who are being directly impacted need to start thinking outside the box. Tom Dixon, who is a Nashville-based veteran singer and songwriter and country musician, joins me for a discussion this week on how big this impact is and what some musicians are trying to do to try to figure this out, to be creative and get by day to day. Tom is also the founder of A+ Canine Performance Dog Training and is also feeling the effects on his small business, much like my next guest on the podcast. Brittany Davison, who is the owner of the Exchange Boutique in Murfreesboro, has been so gracious to join in on this discussion about how small businesses are dealing with and struggling with the decrease in foot traffic in their stores, adjusting operating hours, and even laying off employees. Brittany's positivity, let me tell you, is contagious, and her passion for what she does is allowing her to really think outside of her store's daily norm to keep things afloat. With schools closing across the U.S., with some not projecting to open for the rest of the year, many parents and caretakers have also been put into the role of homeschool teachers. For dual income working parents like my wife and I, we are now having to balance our workday with making sure our kids are still learning and keeping up with their education. I'm not going to lie, this is a huge inconvenience and shift in our daily lives, even more so for others. Allie Olson, a professional in the homeschool arena, as well as co-owner of a company called Homeschool Manager, also joins to talk about the fears and stress that many parents are feeling, as well as some practical ways to approach this new era of homeschooling. So yes, there's a lot packed into this episode, but every bit of information is so relevant to today, and it's my hope that you might find yourself being positively influenced in these weird times we're going through by the conversations that you're about to hear. First up is my conversation with Allie Olson, co-founder of Homeschool Manager. So I have Allie Olson. We're going to have a conversation here that I've titled Ready or Not, a New Era of Homeschooling is Here.
That's great.
So, Allie, can you kind of tell me who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Allie. Like you already said, I've been married for 21 years to my high school sweetheart, and we have 8 kiddos whom we've homeschooled from the get-go. Our oldest is married, and our youngest is 2. So we definitely are invested in the homeschooling world, and it's very familiar. We also own a homeschool company called Homeschool Manager. So I hope that our experience can be used to bless others now as they're kind of thrust into this brave new world.
Yeah, and I hope in the future that we could actually have a more in-depth episode and talk more about you guys and Homeschool Manager. But just kind of in a nutshell, what is Homeschool Manager?
Sure. Homeschool Manager is an online record-keeping software. So the easiest way is it's basically like a grade book that any teacher ever used to use when we were kids. You know, you'd walk up to the desk and hope that those were all good grades on Mrs. Patterson's notebook. I always remember that. But we do it all online. So parents can schedule, they can grade, we track everything that builds towards a transcript for high schoolers, volunteer hours, book lists, attendance. So we just try to take all of the burden of record keeping off the parents so that they can do the fun part of homeschooling and really make memories.
Well, awesome. And like I said, hopefully in the future we can connect back up and do a full length episode about that. But so I actually was just reading before we connected here that some education experts are actually anticipating that this whole COVID-19 thing may generate an increased interest in homeschooling.
Sure.
Because it's kind of leading to an unplanned experiment, if you will, in mass homeschooling. So
yes, we've seen that already. We've had questions both personally from local friends and then also via our business. And, parents are a little nervous. Some are excited. Many are saying we've kind of kicked around the idea of homeschooling before, but never really were quite ready to jump off the cliff. And now it's thrust upon us, just like you said, they don't really have an option but to see how it goes. And so it's definitely an interesting time for pretty much all of us as we try to figure out how to navigate these coming weeks or months, maybe.
Yeah. And now, with the public and the private schools, I believe, being closed throughout the state, I think with the latest I've heard, some counties are like closed until April 13th.
Yeah.
I personally feel like it's probably going to be longer than that.
Right.
And so the issue at hand here is many working parents, this includes myself and my wife as well, we're facing the impact of having to shift to the role of homeschool teachers, but even more than that, trying to balance our work with having the kids at home or even scrambling to find care for our kids while they are at home. So, and for many families, this seems like a huge inconvenience. For others, it's even a bigger issue. I'm thinking the lower income families, they may not be able to afford proper meals for children, much less the technology connectivity needed for online learning. So, and I know that we're kind of keeping an eye out what's going on with our school district or our county. But so the news circulating now is that the public schools are specifically preparing for use of e-learning and grade specific review lessons and resources. But a lot of that's still to be determined. And I just read another report, the Heschinger report, and they basically said the reality is that most schools and teachers are pretty unprepared to take their lessons online.
Sure. Sure. We experienced that just a few weeks ago when we had a snow day at our local tutorial, followed the next week by the tornado that came through. And so we were thrust, didn't even know this was coming, right? So at the time that seemed to, and was a big deal, was a crisis for many of our families. So we had to pivot quickly and get lessons prepared and out to families. So doing that on a long-term scale is massive. And I definitely feel for and for the teachers and the principals, et cetera, all the administration, but also just I know it's a time where we need to both give and receive a lot of grace. And we're all kind of treading unfamiliar territory. And for parents that may feel fearful, what does this do to interrupt their child's education? I would just say, not only from an administrator perspective, like I teach at a local tutorial. So I know when we have those interruptions, I recognize that there's life learning happening even in those experiences and in learning how to make your own breakfast. And, it's time for the kids to pitch in and, do the next level of whatever, whether it's laundry or meal planning or, so it's a neat opportunity, even though that comes with a certain level of stress. It's a neat opportunity to kind of reevaluate what do we consider as learning. And 2+2 is very important, but so are all these other life skills. And so while the schools are trying to figure out what their next step is, perhaps it's an opportunity to embrace some of those just daily life experiences that everybody's always saying, we need adulting classes. Okay, here we go. We all have a chance now to, jump into it with our kiddos and help them learn to do all these, daily things that perhaps they didn't have time for when they were rushing out the door to school.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective. I didn't even think about that. Because the main thing I think of is, okay, what do we have to do to try to simulate the classroom experience?
Right.
Is that absolutely necessary or, it's obviously, it sounds like it's not, you can kind of integrate your own types of learning into this.
Yes. When I speak to new homeschooling families, I actually tell them that I really want them to unschool for a little bit first. And what I mean by that is not just like throw education to the wind at all, but give yourself a little time to learn a new normal. If you try to immediately put your child in a seat for 6 hours a day, that's just not realistic to overlay the school structure onto a home life. And so as homeschoolers, we've learned to, break up lessons, to, enjoy outside time, enjoy, whether it's even like FaceTime, Marco Polo, just kind of break up the 9 to 5, like school time. We don't need to go straight from math to science to English. That it just takes a lot less hours in a homeschool setting than it does when you're in a traditional school classroom. So that could be a huge takeaway for parents to realize that it's really not, even once schools do send the work home, it's not going to take a full day. And that might be helpful. It might be a little scary because that means there's a whole bunch of unplanned hours, but I think it's really helpful for everybody to know that. And even once parents receive the whatever educational packet, or, I know schools are doing it differently. We have a friend who just mentioned she was picking up a packet from her school for her kiddos, but that's not going to take a full day. So that might be helpful for people to know as they start to look ahead. And like you said, go ahead and make plans for what it's going to look like to juggle school and work.
Yeah. So what about learning spaces? I know, is that necessary to create a separate learning space? I know we were out of town and we came back and my kids were like, oh, we're going to set up the reading room as our classroom.
That's so cute.
I mean,
they're excited about it. Yeah,
they are actually. So, but what's your thoughts on that?
Over the years, we've done a little bit of everything. We started out as young parents in a small home. So we learned on the couch mostly. We'd snuggle on the couch and read books together and go to the dining room table for our, more written work, workbook pages probably, which will be what parents will be receiving. But, now we have a separate schoolroom, and that's nice as far as setting aside time, being a little bit more free from distractions. So I guess that would really be family to family, but it is nice to have a spot that you're not distracted by like a television being on or the dog that is begging for a walk or whatever. So you could try it out, especially if they're excited about it, man. If the kids are excited about it, I'd let them run with it. Just make it fun and make it memorable, because
Yeah.
really it's kind of a stressful time for them, whether they realize that or not. I just realized that today, actually, maybe to my shame. I just figured the kids were rolling with it really well. Everything had been just, I don't know, not eventful. My husband works from home. We've homeschooled. So our world hasn't changed too much. We're missing church and we're not going to tutorial, but that was only once a week anyway for the younger kids. But then yesterday and today, I started noticing a lot of, just little bickering and just some heart issues with my younger kiddos. And it dawned on me, this is really hitting them in a way that they just didn't even really have words to express. And we tried to provide space for that, but it's new territory, and they may not even have words for it or may not even realize what's going on. So anyway, I guess I sort of jumped ahead there. Sorry, but
So I know personally we've been kind of overwhelmed by everything that's been kind of pushed to us, whether on social media or over YouTube for different types of resources. Everyone's doing these, I guess you could say there's some well-known children authors that are like reading books aloud. There's a bunch of education websites offering free subscriptions during school closures.
Right.
What are some practical resources that you feel would be some of the better ones to start on?
That's a great question. And I'm going to respond with another question. And that is,
okay.
Do we really need to run to filling all of our moments? And so I would just challenge families. This is definitely a major change of pace for pretty much all of us, like we're just used to, soccer practice and school car lines. And so I just wonder, is this an opportunity for us to take a big step back and slow down? Every summer somebody comes out with a list of like how to have a 1970s summer or how to have a 1980s summer. And we kind of lament the loss of the childhood that many of us had. I mean, I was born in 80, so I grew up with, I think I was 16 when we got our first computer. I was outside all the time. We built forts with leaves. You know what I mean? Like just the simple childhood that we often lament, online. So here's a chance for us to kind of embrace some of that. And I know that's easier said than done. And I know it sounds maybe a little bit simplistic. I don't mean to make light of just the challenge that coming home is, but let's just not rush to fill every moment. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. So, yeah.
There are some great, like you said, great museums. I mean, even Buckingham Palace has a free tour right now. That's just crazy cool.
Yeah.
The Grist downtown, they have closed their doors but opened online opportunities for learning. My kids are downstairs right now actually listening to and watching the local show. We had tickets to go to it, which obviously it was canceled, but that was just me and my hubby. So now the whole family gets to watch it.
Right.
So these kind of opportunities are sweet. But again, like perhaps we can look for chances to pull together and do those fewer experiences all together. And just not be quick to fill every moment. Learn to rest in the quiet or snuggle with a book or the online resources are great, but let's not rush to filling every moment with them.
Yeah. And that sounds like a great idea considering, the other stress and anxiety going on with, the whole, stigma of this virus. So
right.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So kind of to wrap up here. So you wrote a blog that I was reading through called Better Together. And your company is gathering homeschool vendors together in one place with discounts for the homeschooling community. So families don't miss out on the experience and savings of a homeschool convention, which I'm guessing most of those are going to be canceled or postponed.
They're gone, man. They are.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, it's crazy. Which for many vendors, this is their entire livelihood. So that's a challenge for them, and then for the parents, it's their opportunity to find new material. So yeah, it's definitely a trying time in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What kind of resources are these?
So these would probably be a better fit for your homeschooled audience than for traditional school, although there are many on there. Let me think. I know there were some audiobooks, which that would just be delightful. You guys can go to Spring Hill Public Library's website, and we can check out. I guess your audience is broader than just this area, but libraries in general across the nation have audiobooks that you can check out online for free. So we can definitely go to Audible, but even I know you mentioned earlier you're concerned for those that are struggling financially, and that's going to be a lot of us, man. So check out library books for free, enjoy audiobooks. And yes, everybody on the list that I've pulled together on Homeschool Manager, they just really have a heart for the community in general and for making sure that people are still feeling, I guess, the safety and the care of knowing that there's help out there. So, I don't know. It's definitely been a really interesting time to watch everybody kind of link arms, and instead of being in competition with one another, which is in reality, there's only so many dollars, right? But that's not the heart at all. The heart has just been really beautiful of just how can we help? So I've loved watching that. And the post I'm working on now is just basically, Dear Public School Friends, don't homeschool. And my admonition in that post is going to be just to encourage my friends whose kiddos are in traditional school, not to feel like they have to replace every subject, every moment of the day. Definitely when that work comes in, do the work, but, just to really enjoy this time as much as is possible. I know it's crazy, but, to learn, I guess just like we talked about earlier, just to pull back and catch their breaths and, make some memories together. Board games only go so far, though. Let's be honest, right?
Right.
and board games don't keep kids quiet while you're working, and so that's definitely a challenge too. But I guess if I could say one thing that homeschoolers have learned is that you really need some sort of a routine to make the day flow smoothly and to keep everything from just morphing into chaos. So I would really suggest that families consider what a healthy routine is for them. And so whether that, is breakfast together before mom and dad have to get to work, or and then maybe rotate through who does cleanup, and just incorporate the kiddos into every part of the day and try to structure the day to, so that there's some comfort in that routine. And that's something that has really blessed us over the years in our homeschool. And that's something that may serve our friends who are just now coming home and trying to figure out how to, make a day flow smoothly. So consider a routine and make us time for learning, So this is going to be when you sit down and do your math worksheets. And if you don't have any yet, then go online and Google it. They're everywhere. Or Khan Academy, Khan Academy is free and they really walk through education well, but the kiddos are going to pick up, what they're missing right now so quickly. So I wouldn't stress over that. I'd wait for schools to send out their lists of what needs to be accomplished, but I would definitely go ahead and consider what a healthy routine looks like. And for us, that means no media until the day is finished. So once all the school's done and all whatever laundry or whatever kind of stuff or board games or whatever expectations we've set, then the TV can come on. Without that tends to cause a lot of conflict, I've noticed, when you have kind of an open-ended day. So anyway, those are a couple of little tips that have helped us structure our day over the years. My heart goes out, man, to the families that are trying to learn how to juggle it. I remember our early years were a challenge. And so just give yourself a lot of grace, mom and dad. Don't expect it to go perfectly, and let the kids have room to say, this is hard, or I really don't like this. That's okay too, So that could be what the best part of growth that comes out of all this.
I want to take a moment to tell you about Shipt Grocery Delivery. Shipt launched a few years ago in Birmingham, Alabama, founded on the mission of simplifying lives Ship serves members, shoppers, and communities by offering convenience and freedom. So here's how it works. Scroll through the aisles of your local stores like Target, Publix, CVS, in the Shipt app and create an order. The Ship shoppers then work their magic, keeping you connected and giving live updates from the aisles. Your order is then delivered and arrives as soon as 1 hour. It really is that easy. I use Shipt all the time, and let me tell you, going to the grocery store is not one of my favorite things to do. Shipt saves time, fuel, and headspace. With next hour same-day delivery, I have what I need when I need it, whether it's Monster energy drinks, ice cream, and even alcohol. Yes, Shipt can now deliver your favorite adult beverages. I regularly order from my local Target and Publix, but also have options to place orders at CVS and Petco. I absolutely love it. For listeners of this podcast, I'm giving you 50% off. Yes, half off an annual membership when you sign up. That's a $49 annual membership, which is regularly $99. You can cancel at any time, but I promise you, you won't do that after you use Shipt a few times. So here's what you need to do to take advantage of this offer. Head to my website, 99percentlocalpod.com/shipt. That's SHIPT. Next up is my conversation with Brittany Davidson, owner of the Exchange Boutique in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm Brittany Davidson, newly married. Actually got married in September of this past year. I own a boutique in Murfreesboro on the square, the heart of the town, called the Exchange Boutique, and also an event space for women called the Social Exchange.
So I was reading that 95% of businesses in Tennessee are actually small businesses. 94% of the state's private sector is made up of companies with fewer than 50 employees. Mm-hmm. And small businesses are really the backbone of our economy. And we are already seeing the impact of this coronavirus in our state and all across our state. Yeah. It's obviously hurting our small businesses, especially in the hospitality sector. Restaurants are either shutting down or customers are staying home and they're not getting much business. Right. The manufacturing sector is also getting affected as supply chains have been interrupted. I think the GM, there's a big GM manufacturing plant here in Spring Hill, and I think I saw that they're actually shutting down now. To try to protect its workforce from getting sick. So I know a lot of businesses, both in retail, which you're in, and hospitality are choosing to temporarily close, but I think some fear that they might not be able to open their doors back up after, we're clear from this epidemic. So can you kind of talk about how you've specifically been impacted?
Yeah. And, I'm really open, real raw about this. I actually have a blog called The Daily Exchange that I just want people to know, even though I always put out this ray of positivity, I'm a human. So I have emotions, I have a soul, I have a heart. And so I've been on this emotional roller coaster along with everybody else, and have been filled with doubt and fear. And even Tuesday afternoon at 3:00 p.m., with zero sales for the day, I had a absolute meltdown. Like, it was ugly crying. And so, I came to my team and I said, look, we've got 3 hours left in this day. We need to make the most of it. Let's go. Let's do what we can with what we have. And then at 6:00, we'll figure out what tomorrow brings. So that's when we ultimately just went around. I said, gather all the things that you like, all of your favorite items. We're going to do a Facebook Live. And we did the Facebook Live, and not knowing it would be successful, it ended up being successful. And it allowed us to open up our doors the next day. And because of that momentum and that moment of feeling all of the overwhelming support and love from my community, I just went into the next day on fire, more than I've ever been. And of course, ended that day exhausted, but it was so worth it, because not only did we, surpass all the goals I had in mind, but it was just, all the emotions are so heightened right now. The lows are lows, the highs are highs. I think more than anything for us, it's just the fear of the unknown. I would feel so much more certain if there was an end date in mind. But I can't let that get me down, because ultimately what I feel right now is, in my weakest moments, I have to remind myself the invisible enemy here is not the coronavirus. It is fear. And we either have the choice to fight like hell, or we have the choice to give up. And I'm a fighter.
Mm.
So I'm going to fight like hell. I'm going to do whatever I can with what I have until I'm either forced to close, or until I'm not making any money. I'm not profitable and I can't go on.
What was the biggest impact? Was it just not getting the foot traffic that you would typically have?
It was.
Or, yeah.
It was. That's tough, because Mondays I'm typically not in the shop. I do have an amazing lady that I like to call her my backbone. She has been with me for a little over a year, and she's just so great. And she works on Mondays. I'm not in the shop. Monday sales were crazy down. Tuesday I came in, and like I said, Tuesday at 3:00, $0. Sales for that day. So it was very discouraging. Almost the feeling of defeat started to kick in. And I'm like, this is it. But, luckily for me personally, I don't know if you know Andy Frisella, or if you listen to Andy Frisella. Do you listen to his podcast?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I should, though.
Oh my gosh. Only if you like to get verbally beat up. I mean, he is literally how I talk to myself. And it's not how I would talk to anybody else, but it's how I talk to myself. And so in moments like that, that is how I talk to myself. And I'm like, you need to get up, you need to fight. So that's just kind of what I do. And in situations, not just for me, but for everybody that's going through this, I feel like we are being forced into a situation to where we have to get creative. We have to think outside the box. We have to not be dependent on people coming into our brick and mortar if that's what we have. We have to create our own economy. And so that's what ultimately we started doing. We started just doing what we could with what we had. And, the Facebook live sales are happening. I call them the shop from your sofa sales.
Right.
And I don't know if they're shopping from their sofa or not, but it just sounds good considering certain circumstances. But offering curbside pickup, free delivery locally, free shipping all over the US. And, some people may look at me and say, you're losing money offering free delivery or free shipping, but ultimately I may be losing a little, but I'm gaining a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have other business owner friends that are either in retail or the restaurant industry, but what can others do to kind of think outside the box, whether it's, doing more live streaming like what you're doing, or I know a lot are doing local delivery as well, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I completely see it. Because where I am in the downtown community of Murfreesboro, we are a community. We are all there for one another. So we are all checking in with each other throughout the day and weekly, seeing how we're doing. And the ideas that these other businesses have been putting into motion, it's just incredible. So we have a really charming restaurant right across the street from us called the Alley on Main. And they've always just poured into the community. So in a situation like this, of course, the community pours back into them, but they are having to get creative and not depending on people coming into their restaurant because of, what we're being told we need to do. So they are offering lunch delivery. They're offering, now they've got a food truck. So they're hitting up neighborhoods that have HOAs and reaching out to HOAs to see how many people would actually order from us in order for it to benefit us to come to your neighborhood. So they hit up one neighborhood last night. They were in our neighborhood tonight. So it's just reaching out in different ways. So I thought that was really cool. Another restaurant's doing online cooking classes because he's completely closed his doors to people. So he's reliant on either pickup during lunch, or he's now come up with this online cooking class option. So that's kind of taken off for him.
So one thing you didn't mention, which I thought you would, but is gift cards and gift certificates, right?
Yes, yes.
That's something that you can, will benefit you guys, the business owners, right off the bat, and whoever purchased those can benefit later on once you guys open back up fully, or
That's right.
once we recover from all this.
That's right. So what we are doing, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because, during our Facebook Lives, if of course they don't see anything that they like in that Facebook Live, they can always purchase a gift certificate to use at a later date. And we're doing 20% off of gift certificate purchases right now. So of course you're offering the discount ahead of time, but you have to imagine when they come in and actually have that opportunity to shop with you, they're more than likely going to spend more than what that gift card is for. Because at the end of this, I see a surge. I see people wanting to get out, wanting to be around society, wanting to spend money, wanting to shop, eat, and just be back to their normal life.
And I know I've been, and I don't want to make this political at all, but I watch the news, and I know the governor's trying to request, or he did request from the U.S. Small Business Administration to access loans for small businesses and nonprofits. But I don't know how tangible that is. There's a lot of, fine print on that, but and I don't know how, if there's certain criteria. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard a little about that. I haven't investigated that for me personally. That's just not the road I want to go down. But
sure.
For a friend of mine, she's actually a boutique owner in the downtown area as well. She's got multiple locations with over 25 employees. So this is a time where she has definitely looked into something like that. So I say, from what I have heard about it, if you are in a situation like that, for sure, take advantage of any opportunity you have that comes your way, because it seems like it's something that would be a good opportunity to take advantage of if you need it, because she has a Nashville location and she actually was hit by the whole tornado thing too. So it was a double whammy for her, unfortunately. So she's just really feeling the heat. She's feeling the pressure. So she's needing that extra assistance, which I can only imagine, To leave on a positive note, because I do totally want to do that. I don't want it to seem like we're, being fearful. I just feel like it's very important for us to continue to get up every morning with, waking up with a purpose and moving our body and working our mind and just moving about the way that we typically would. And that includes making your bed. That's the first one of the day. Of course, you know that, but, just continuing on with that purpose, because at the end of all this, if you don't do that right now, then it's not going to look pretty for you whenever it's finally over. We just got to keep with it and just keep rolling with the punches and staying positive and not let fear, distract us from the possibility. So
last but surely not least, here's my conversation with Tom Dixon, veteran Nashville country singer and songwriter and small business owner. All right, so now I have Tom Dixon with me. He is actually an owner and dog trainer with A+ Canine Performance Dog Training. And I hope, Tom, that later on in the future, we can actually have a full podcast episode about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're also a veteran singer-songwriter and country artist who's been in Nashville for a handful of years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get you on to kind of talk about this coronavirus thing and the impact of, the restaurant and bars shutting down specifically in, Lower Broadway, and the impact that it's had on musicians. So just for listeners, on Sunday, I think it was Sunday, March 15th, the mayor of Nashville took short-term action, declaring a public health emergency, calling for all of the bars on Lower Broadway and throughout, I think, Davidson County to close until further notice.
Yeah.
I think restaurants were asked to cap their seatings at like 50% and something like that. So this is really truly impacting musicians' livelihoods. Many of these musicians live paycheck to paycheck. They also don't have benefits or insurance. Many of the artists pay the musicians that perform with them. And with that income stream gone, the impact's pretty strong. So, and surprisingly, most of these musicians aren't millionaires. And
really?
Right. And they got to work down there for tips and have to pay bills. So,
yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, it is tough. I mean, like you said, a lot of these performers are living paycheck to paycheck. And, a lot of the bars are also kind of fighting back on this. And some of the musicians are fighting back. Some are not. Some are saying, you know what, this is what we need to do. I've talked to some that are saying like, I sock money away, but others, they don't, and others can't, so I think everybody's situation is different here. It's definitely tough. And then I also know like friends of mine who were just going to come into town, they were dying to go to Broadway and this and that, and they just had to cancel their trip. So it's affecting a lot of things. It really is.
Yeah. And I know, it's kind of a double whammy because a lot of these musicians too live in that area or live towards East Nashville. And a lot of them were already displaced by the tornado back on March 2nd. And now they're out of work.
Exactly.
So, and, other musicians, I know some specifically that, they're not specifically on Broadway, but they've had gigs canceled too. As well as tours.
Yeah.
So,
even being on the road. I mean, I'm supposed to go on the road in April, and I don't think that's going to happen at this point. And it's kind of a bummer because it's been a while since I've been on the road, and I was finally going to kind of get out there and do it again. And now all of a sudden, the government basically bumps the brakes on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just don't know what to do with it. So yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. So I know I think you said you talked to some of your fellow musicians about this. I mean, what are some of the other ones saying? Or what situations are some of them in specifically?
Yeah. Like I said, some of them most of the guys I know actually do have a little bit of savings, and, some of them are saying, hey, I'm good for a couple of weeks, or I'm good for a month or whatever. And then, gosh, we hope it doesn't go much longer than that, but in any situation, there's as well as I do that there's more cost involved in being a musician than there is making money anyway. And a lot of these guys live a pretty minimal lifestyle as it is, but it's just tough. And if you do live that minimal lifestyle, I mean, how much can you take away? You can't exactly. I mean, if you're already living on ramen noodle, what do you cut back on? So that's probably the hardest thing that I've seen when people, these people aren't living on filet mignon. They're not, throwing meat in their smoker every week like I am,
Yeah.
Not on training dogs, but no. So it's mixed out there. Some are like, hey, whatever, we're going to make the best of it. We're going to do some live streams for our fans. And then, some of that's happening, and other people are kind of like, man, this sucks. I don't know what I'm going to do. A lot of musicians, for one thing, have a backup plan. Like when I was doing it full time in the off season, I was actually doing grocery deliveries through a company called Shipped. And I know some of the guys that actually got me involved in that are doing that again. I'm like, hey, you got me delivering groceries again? They're like, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, for a little while. So
yeah. I mean, even the grocery, the food delivery. Right. I think I saw that like Amazon's even hiring a bunch of people.
Are they? Yeah.
I mean, they're trying. I know there's, I don't know a lot about this, but I know there was some foundation out there called the Musicians Foundation in New York, that they were a nonprofit, but they existed for this purpose, providing financial assistance to musicians in times of need or crisis. But I think they've received so many requests they can't really keep up.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I know someone else sent me an article from Creative Capital. I don't know if that's a company or if it's just a website, but they have tons of resources for artists in all disciplines. And they're going to continue to update that over the next few weeks or months. That's as awesome. Far as like different types of financial assistance they can get, or whether it is actually like, different types of jobs they can take. So,
sure.
So I did want to talk about some practical things that some of these musicians can do. You already talked about the live streaming. I know I've seen that a lot of them are turning back to that. I feel like that kind of died for a while, but,
and I don't know if they're really doing it, making money really, like, cause that was kind of a thing. Like I even thought about doing a Stage It thing. I used to do that. Like you said, that used to be a thing. And then things like Facebook Live and all those live, like free things started to become a thing. And we all had to kind of follow that. And suddenly we're like, well, there goes that tiny little revenue stream we had, that's completely gone now. So I don't know if anybody's making money at that. I think they're just doing that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they're going to give it a whirl, and I may even just to, supplement the trip I'm going to lose, just, I don't know. We'll see. We're playing it day by day.
I mean, there's nothing out there that's really going to replace that income from playing every day.
Right.
So the Stage It thing, just so listeners know, it was kind of like an online venue, right, where they can perform and interact. And then I can't remember if that was the one where you could kind of pay. Was it you could pay your own price, per ticket, or
most artists chose that option. There was an option to set a price, but they even tell you you're gonna make more money if you just let them set their own price. But then they can tip you, they buy a bunch of credits and they can tip you during the show and stuff like that. And it was cool. But then like I said, free formats, suddenly Facebook Live and all the others on Twitter and Instagram all took off, and that was the end of making money playing and streaming.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to go this route, but even, talking about the other people displaced out of work, even the people that work at those bars and things. I know several of the bar owners are country superstars, and a lot of them, some of them are trying to find ways to actually pay their employees who are out of work now.
That's cool.
I saw actually a couple of the bars are doing online festivals where they're actually going to have some of their regulars that play be part of that and stream it as well. So
that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, they're obviously trying to support their regular artists that they have in those bars. So
that's awesome. That's good to hear. I mean, and people are going to be bored if we're all going to be stuck at home. What are we going to do? I mean, I've already in my dog training thing, I've had some cancellations already, and I spent half my day just kind of sitting around at home. I'm like, what am I going to do with myself if this continues? So having those outlets, that's really cool for even the people who aren't musicians to be able to enjoy that and do something different than just watch TV,
Oh, I know. Yeah. So, I think the virtual tip jars, I'm seeing artists do that.
Yeah.
They're setting up GoFundMes. It's just, this is just so surreal, man. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's, I don't think so I just came from Illinois. We spent a few days there with family. So it was kind of even more stressful trying to balance the news between what's going on in Illinois and what's going on here. And we were worrying about what if they shut down the domestic borders? Are we even going to be able to get back down here? And
right. Yeah.
Because, man. Because eventually I would guess that most of all bars and restaurants will probably be shut down completely in Tennessee, as similar to what other states are doing.
I think so soon. It's pretty much just Davidson County right now, right?
I think so. Yeah. And then the restaurants are, like I said, they're limited to their seating, but I don't think people are really wanting to go to restaurants.
I know.
so they're doing a lot of the carry out and delivery. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So thanks for doing this. I know, like you said, you had a trip in April. Hopefully that pans out. I know it's kind of that was late April, right?
Yeah, I think my show in Virginia was the 17th, and it was through the following weekend. And then I was supposed to be playing here in Tennessee at a winery later in the month. So yeah, here I go. I start to ramp back up here, and it might not happen. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll hope for the best. So I mean, unfortunately, I don't think there's any answers right now. Nobody really has them.
Just thinking outside of the box. That's the thing. It really is. That sounds like just a cliche thing to say, but those are the ones who are going to do well on the music side of things is thinking outside of the box at this point. And that's something we all learn to do, because the industry doesn't pay you enough anyway. So you're always thinking, what can I do? What can I do? So, and I think it's probably the same for, waitresses, bartenders, things like that. Everybody's just going to have to think outside of the box for a while.
Before we get out of here, thank you for listening. And as always, you know how to find me. You can always email me at 99percentlocalpod@gmail.com or hit me up on the website at 99percentlocalpod.com or on Instagram at 99percentlocalpod. Listen, if you're a small business, musician, or creator in any other way and you're struggling through this COVID-19 thing, hit me up and I'll do everything I can to help promote what you're doing, whether it's sharing your posts, live Instagrams, whatever. After all, community is what Middle Tennessee is all about. So all I have to say to end with here is just everyone just, take a deep breath, calm down, and we'll get through this together.